Hello, this is Paul from Play Magazine, and this is a review of Republique. For those of you not familiar, Republique was originally a mobile game that was being released episodically. Since then, it had a PC version made, and now it's got a PS4 version, which is the complete thing, so that all 5 episodes in one package. The basic setup for the game is that you're trying to help a girl called Hope to escape from a facility that's overseen by a dictator figure who's called the Overseer or the Headmaster, depending who's referring to him. You play as a character that's actually external to the facility, so all your interactions with it are by hacking objects in the world. So your view is always through security cameras. It's kind of like some of the sections in Watch Dogs where you would get to areas that you couldn't otherwise by hacking cameras and using their view to move through the world. So it's like that. You hack cameras, use that to scope out what's going on, and from there you can go into this hacking mode, which then allows you to interact with other things. So you can lock and unlock doors, you can hack emails, interfere with the guards' radios to distract them for a moment, that kind of thing. The difference with this, as opposed to the mobile versions, where you didn't have so much direct control, is that Hope is also directly controlled by you on the stick. So it's this combination of using the hacking mode to interfere with the world, but also then using the cameras to scope out where guards are patrolling and then sneaking Hope through. You can use tasers and pepper spray and that kind of thing that you use throughout the world, but this is a stealth game, and I think it's clear that the idea is generally to try and avoid that kind of thing. There's something inherently satisfying about the hacking in the game. There's something really appealing about being the outside force with the power to interfere with the facility security and mess around with it so that bend it to your will. So that's a really, really cool aspect of the game. The fixed camera perspectives as well, though you can move them around. It gives a bit of a feeling of an old school stealth game. It did make me think a little bit of Metal Gear Solid at times, both in terms of just that perspective thing and the stealth, but also the way that the game, you're often crisscrossing the facility. You occasionally return to previous areas as you move around trying to achieve whatever objectives are on hand. Something that I quite liked about the hacking as well is they'll often introduce new things that will just make it a little bit different, give you a little bit of variety. So there are a few one-shot things that you'll only do once. I think in particular of a section where you have to dig into the history of some of the guards in the facility, dig up some information on them, and use that information to put together a news story that unfairly besmirches their name so that you can get them out of your way. I mentioned that particular section not just because it's an example, one of those one-off gameplay ideas I was talking about, but because it's an example of what Republique can do when it's at its best, which is to merge gameplay and storytelling together really well. So that particular moment, it's really satisfying as a piece of detective work, like doing the investigation and finding stuff in putting it together is in itself satisfying, but it also gives you a really powerful look into some of the guards' backstories and actually really makes you feel for them in a way that you haven't up to that point, and gives you an insight into what's happened to them, what's happening in the world, and it makes you feel really bad about what you're actually doing. And with the storytelling in general, I was actually really hooked by the end of the 3rd episode. I'm not going to go into the details because obviously that's for you to discover yourself, but broadly speaking, the game is about surveillance and this kind of mysterious dystopian society, but a large part of it is discovering exactly what's going on. But yeah, by the end of the 3rd episode, I was really into it. I'm really keen to see how it was going. Unfortunately, the 4th episode of the game is really dreadful. It takes away a lot of what made the game enjoyable in gameplay terms, but also the story just loses all its momentum. The game as a whole loses all its momentum in the 4th episode, which is awful. Gives it a really tough task in the final concluding episode to pull things back, which I'm never sure it quite does, which is a shame. Though I was quite disappointed with the latter stages of the game, Republique is a lot better than I expected for a game that was essentially started as a mobile title that's now been ported to console. And as a fan of stealth games, I really did enjoy it up to that 4th episode, as I mentioned. To the point that I think I would still recommend it. It feels quite different from other games out there. As I said, kind of reminiscent of that older style, like Metal Gear Solid era of stealth games, and the way that information gathering, both in terms of scoping out routes and hacking things and finding out stuff, is a vital part of how the game works. I like that. So be aware that there are problems there, like the ones I mentioned. The fact that it can occasionally be a little bit fiddly control-wise. The loading times when switching between cameras is a little too long. I do think, like a lot of games, it sticks a bit too closely to what George Orwell's idea of a dystopia is from 1984 and can't really think past that. But it does feel different enough and does enough good things with its storytelling and its ideas and its mechanics and how they put those things together that I still think it's worth a go.